If you ever wanted to hike across another planet, but still sleep in a hut and pay for coffee with Apple Pay, welcome to Iceland. I spent 6 days trekking the Laugavegur and Fimmvörðuháls trails, and in this video I'll show you everything you need to know. The routes, the huts, the costs, the chaos, and the moments that made me fall in love with Iceland's wild highlands. Alright, let's start with a quick overview of what we're actually hiking here. The Laugavegur Trail is Iceland's most famous multi-day trek. It stretches about 55 kilometers from Laugavegur in the north, known for its rainbow mountains and geothermal hot springs, all the way to Thorsmork, a lush valley surrounded by glaciers. It usually takes about 4 days to complete, passing through an unbelievable variety of landscapes. Colorful mountains, black volcanic deserts, glacier-fed rivers, and mossy green valleys that look like something straight from a fantasy movie. Then, if you want to make things even more epic and slightly more exhausting, you can continue onto the Fimmvörðuháls trail. That's another 25 kilometers, taking you from Thorsmork over volcanic passes and between two glaciers, all the way to the famous Laugavegur waterfall on the south coast. Put them together and you get roughly 100 kilometers of hiking. It's often called one of the most beautiful trails in the world, and honestly, it lives up to the hype. In less than a week, you'll see just about every landscape Iceland has to offer. Fire, ice, desert, forest, waterfalls, all rolled into one unforgettable adventure. Now, before we get into my day-by-day breakdown, let's have a quick look at how my journey actually unfolded. Just a quick FYI, this video's got chapters, so feel free to jump around to the sections that make the most sense to you. Before the Laugavegur trail even begins, most people pass through Laugavegur, a geothermal wonderland in Iceland's highlands, but trust me, it deserves at least a full day on its own. I arrived mid-morning after a 4-hour highland bus ride from Reykjavik, which by the way feels more like a roller coaster designed by a volcanologist. You bounce, you slide, you cross rivers, and by the end you're silently thanking yourself for not renting a tiny 2-wheel drive car. When you first step off the bus, it's surreal. You're surrounded by the Raulet mountains, painted in reds, yellows and greens, lava fields that look like they're still cooling, and a constant smell of sulfur reminding you that Iceland's basically alive under your feet. There's no reception here, so the warden is your oracle. My warm-up hike, the Laugavegur volcanic mountain, or as I like to call it, the black stairway to self-doubt, is a short hike distance, but brutally steep. Volcanic sand means every 2 steps forward comes with one glorious slide back, but the views from the top, unreal. After that I wandered through Laugavegur lava field, a twisting maze of black rock and steam vents. Then I joined part of Brennisteinssalda loop, a circular trail that passes through bubbling mud pots and sulfur vents that hiss like they're alive. The smell is memorable. Let's just say it's the kind of aroma that stays with you and your clothes for days. By late afternoon, it was time for the hot spring. Picture this, sitting in naturally heated water, steam rising around you, mountains glowing in the distance. It's crowded in the day, but in the evening it quiets down. That's when the magic hits. Afterward I grabbed a plate of hot food and a beer from the old yellow school bus cafe. Yes, there's an actual school bus out here serving meals, and just sit there watching the rain over the valley. That night I realized something. Laugavegur isn't just the starting point of the trail, it's a destination all on its own. If you're hiking the Laugavegur, give yourself this extra day. Trust me, you won't regret it. Day 1, the real adventure begins. 12 kilometers, roughly 6 to 7 hours climbing from the colorful valleys of Laugavegur straight to Iceland's highland. I set off early before the tour groups hit the trail. The air was crisp, the sun was out, and for about 30 minutes Iceland pretended to be friendly. Volcanic sand crushed under my boots, steam vents hissed in the distance, and everything smelled faintly of hard-boiled eggs. That's the sulfur. You get used to it, eventually. The first few kilometers are pure eye candy. Every ridge reveals another wave of rainbow mountains, red, yellow, green and grey. Like nature's paint palette exploded. But then the incline hits and you realize that you're climbing straight into a wind tunnel, made entirely of volcanic grit. As I gained altitude, the temperature dropped fast. The blue sky from the morning turned slate grey, and icy gusts came out of nowhere. Gloves on, hood up, mental prep talk initiated. Eventually the trail levels off onto a vast plateau, the caldera. Up here it feels like another planet. Black lava fields, white snow and thermal steaming out of the ground like Earth's exhaling. It's beautiful, eerie and freezing all at once. But finally there it was, a tiny wooden hut sitting alone in the endless volcanic desert. Hafrunusker hut, my first stop. Inside, the warden welcomed me alongside like a lost family. The hut itself was surprisingly cozy, bunks lined up wall to wall, a kitchen full of pots and coffee gear, and hikers swapping stories about near-death encounters in the wind. Outside tents were flapping like kites in distress, and I silently thanked past me for booking a bunk. Day 1 was a brutal wake-up call, short on comfort, big on awe, and somehow I couldn't wait for day 2. Day 2 started with that special Icelandic combo, sideways rain and optimism on life support. I woke up to the sound of wind pounding the hut and rain tapping the windows like an impatient drummer. Breakfast was instant oats, coffee, and denial. By 9 a.m. the warden gave us the go signal. This is as calm as going to get. Translation, go now or get wrecked later. So off I went. Visibility was maybe 20 meters. The world turned monochrome, just black rock, white snow patches, and ghostly steam rising from the ground. Day 1 was a geology lesson. Day 2 was like walking through a dream sequence in slow motion. The first few hours was a gentle descent through the mist, crossing snow bridges and muddy slopes. At one point I stopped just to listen. No voices, no birds, just wind and the occasional hiss from a nearby fumarole. It's eerie, but it's the kind of solitude that makes the trail unforgettable. Eventually the fog thinned and I heard the unmistakable roar of my first real glacial river crossing. Not deep, but absolutely freezing. Halfway through my brain screamed, "Mistake!" while the camera screamed, "Do it again for the shot." 3 crossings later I had the footage, not quite the best. It felt like I've been cryogenically preserved. And then out of nowhere the clouds broke. And peeled away like a curtain, there it was, Aflavatn Lake. Blue water surrounded by green and black mountains, sunlight glinting off the surface. Still early afternoon, I decided to go for lunch. Yes, they have an actual restaurant. And naturally I celebrated with a €33 soup and beer combo that tasted like Michelin star magic after a cold day in the rain. Day 2 may start miserable, but it ends pure magic. The kind of day that reminds you why you hike. Not for the comfort, but for the moments like this. Day 3 began like every hiker's dream. Clear skies, golden light, and not a hint of wind. After 2 days of fog, rain, and mild existential crisis, waking up at Aflavatn felt like winning the weather lottery. The first few hours were pure joy. The trail meandered through rolling green hills with tiny streams sparkling in the sun. Every corner looked like desktop wallpaper. It was one of those rare mornings where Iceland was all charm and no chaos. Soon enough, I reached the first of the 2 glacier river crossings for the day. The water, about 3 degrees. I tried to be brave, I failed. Naturally, because I'm filming this trip, I crossed the river 3 times to get the shot. My toes may never forgive me. After the river crossings, the scenery flipped like a switch. One moment green moss, the next an endless black volcanic plain stretching for as far as you can see. It's beautiful, yes, but it messes with your sense of scale. You keep walking, think you're almost there, and an hour later you're still staring at the same rock on the horizon. It's like deja vu. And then, eventually, a cluster of huts tucked between canyons and mossy slope looking like a tiny oasis in the middle of nowhere. Emstra. After hours of walking through emptiness, the sight is pure joy. The hut is cozy and social. Rows of bunks, a shared kitchen, and that familiar mix of instant noodles and human bonding. The real prize, though, is a shower. €6 for 5 minutes of scalding bliss. That evening I sat aside with a small whiskey, watching the sun dip behind the mountains. Some groups were even grilling salmon on a barbecue, pure bliss. Day 4, the final leg of the Laugavegur trail. After 3 days of volcanic desert and weather mood swings, this was the day where everything changed. The scenery, the air, even the color palette. The morning started calm and moody. The clouds hung low, painting everything in muted tones, the kind of light that makes Iceland feel cinematic even before you've had your coffee. And then, of course, the trail dropped. A steep, sandy descent, loose, slippery, and 100% not optional. I took it slow, partly for safety and partly because the views were insane. I stopped for photos at least 5 times, which is the hiker code for I can't feel my thighs anymore. Once the trail reached the bottom, the trail turns wild, winding along narrow ridges, over bridges, and through gorges that look straight out of a fantasy film. If day 1 was Mars, this was Middle Earth. But before Thorsmund could let me in, there was one final boss. The river. Wide, cold, and moving faster than I'd like. The trail eased into a real forest. This time the trees are even taller than me. And then eventually Thorsmund Valley appeared, growing green under moody skies. After days of barren highlands, it felt like a reward, a hidden paradise carved out by ice and time. That night I checked into my hut, took another glorious shower and sat by the window watching clouds drift over the glacier. Tired, sore, happy. 4 days, 55 kilometers and the Laugavegur trail was complete. The Laugavegur trail might end in Thorsmorg, but the adventure isn't over. Welcome to the Fimmvörðuháls trail. 2 days, 25 kilometers, climbing between 2 glaciers and finishing at one of Iceland's most famous waterfalls, Skogafoss. I set out early under the moody skies, low clouds hanging over the valley, light drizzle and an unmistakable smell of adventure, mixed with my damp socks. The first few kilometers were gentle, crossing small rivers and weaving through Iceland's version of the forest. But soon the trees thinned out and the trail went up and the climb began. And wow, the climb did not mess around. Overall, I climbed over 1,000 meters of elevation in just a few hours. Every switchback opens to new views of Thorsmorg below, green valleys and rivers and glaciers in the distance. At one point I stopped for photos, which was really code for catching my breath and questioning my life decisions. But when you finally hit the ridge, it's all worth it. It's breathtaking, it's humbling, and yes, it's very windy. Then the landscape changes again, from black sand to deep lava rock. You're literally walking on the fresh lava field from the 2010 eruption. The ground still feels raw, fractured, and almost alive. The weather turned as I got higher, wind howling, light rain stinging my face. But then through the mist I saw it, a small wooden hut sitting on the ridge. Remote, silent, perched between 2 glaciers like it's defying logic. I walked in drenched and freezing, but immediately got offered free coffee by the warden, who's been working up there for over 25 years. Inside the hut was cozy chaos, damp boots everywhere, jackets steaming by the heater, people trading trail stories over instant noodles. No showers, no signal, but unlimited views, and somehow that felt perfect. Day 5 was brutal, but unforgettable. Day 6 was my final day. I woke up in the hut between glaciers, completely above the clouds, and for a moment it felt unreal. The sky was gold, the air was chill, and the only sound was the wind brushing over ice. The morning started calm, breakfast, coffee, and a bittersweet feeling that comes when you realize the adventure's almost over. Outside, the view stretched forever, glaciers behind, volcanic plains below, and a sea of white clouds waiting to swallow everything as I began to descend. 1 minute I was above the world, the next I was walking through a scene straight out of a fantasy film. Mist swirling, waterfalls roaring, somewhere just beyond sight. It was quiet, eerie and cinematic in a way that Iceland does best. And then I heard it, water. Not just a stream, but dozens. This section of the Fimmvörðuháls trail is famous for its waterfalls. More than 20 waterfalls, scattered down the valley like nature's victory parade. It's honestly overwhelming. After days of lava, snow and silence, suddenly you're surrounded by color and movement. Everything alive again. The air smells like wet earth and energy. And then there it was. The sound built first, deep and thunderous, echoing through the valley. I reached the edge, and below me, Skogafoss. A 60-meter wall of water crashing into mist, marking the end of the entire journey. After 6 days, 75 kilometers, and roughly 1,000 weather forecasts, I made it. Soaked, sore, slightly delirious, but standing at one of the most famous waterfalls in the world, smiling like an idiot. Alright, let's talk planning. Because depending on your time, budget and tolerance for cold river crossings, you can hike Iceland's trail in a few different ways. Option 1 is the classic Laugavegur. 4 days, one of the most beautiful treks on earth. From Rainbow Mountains to volcanic plains, it's Iceland in its purest form. Option 2 is the combination of full Laugavegur and Fimmvörðuháls trail, because stopping in Thorsmorg is like leaving a movie 10 minutes before the ending. The extension adds glaciers, lava fields and a waterfall descent so cinematic you feel like you're walking through Iceland's highlight reel. Just a heads up that day 5 climb from Thorsmorg is no joke, 1,000 meters up, but the view from the top will make you forget the pain, eventually. Option 3 is the extended 7-day. Because Laugavegur deserves more than a quick photo before you start hiking. Spend a full day soaking, exploring and letting the place sink in before taking on into the highlands. Option 4 is for those that are limited in time. If you don't have a full week but you still want to experience Iceland's most spectacular treks, this is it. It's just 2 days, you'll climb between 2 glaciers, walk over fresh lava fields and descend into 20 plus waterfalls to finish at Skogafoss. It's short, dramatic and absolutely unforgettable. So if you're not sure which one to pick, I'd say go for the 6-day version. It's long enough to feel like a true expedition, short enough to still enjoy it, and finishing at Skogafoss feels like rolling credits on an epic film. Okay, so you've watched the videos, you sold on the views, and now you're wondering, how do I actually plan this thing without accidentally booking a one-way ticket to the wrong volcano? First, pick your direction. Most hikers go north to south, starting in Laugavegur and finishing in Thorsmork or Skogafoss. Why? Because it's logistically easier, better for acclimatizing, and let's be honest, finishing at a massive waterfall just feels cooler than starting it. You can go the other way around, but you'll be climbing 1,000 meters on day one, so unless you enjoy uphill suffering, stick with the north to south. Book your huts early. All the huts are managed by Iceland Touring Association, and popular days, especially mid-July to August, sell out within weeks. Once you've booked, print the confirmation. There's no Wi-Fi in the Highlands to retrieve the email later. Camping? Easier by bringing the right gear. If you're camping, there's no need to book in advance, just pay the hut warden when you arrive, normally around €20 per person. You'll have access to toilets, sinks and sometimes showers, but the weather is your roommate. Bring solid gear, a 4-season tent, -5 sleeping bag and a stubborn attitude. You can't drive a regular car to Laugavegur. You'll need either a 4x4 or the Highland bus. Companies like Reykjavik Excursions, T-Rex and Sterna Travel run daily buses from Reykjavik, Selfoss or Hella. They usually start mid-June and run until early September. Book the seats online. It's about €60 to €90 one way depending on the route. The bus drops you right at Laugavegur campsite. No detours, no confusion. There's normally at least a coffee stop midway, which is nice. If you finish at Thorsmork, you can take the Highland bus back to Reykjavik or continue onto Fimmvörðuháls trail and end at Skogafoss. From Skogafoss, it's easy. There are public buses to Vik, Selfoss or Reykjavik all year round. Even for the classic 4-day Laugavegur, plan at least 6 to 7 days in total. That'll include 1 day to travel from Reykjavik to Laugavegur, 4 to 6 days of hiking and 1 day to return and recover. Flights get delayed, weather changes fast, and Iceland doesn't care about your tight schedule. Always add a buffer day, you'll thank yourself later. The official season usually runs from late June to early September, when the snow has melted enough for huts and campsites to open. July is peak season for a reason. You'll get the most stable weather, well, by Icelandic standards, nearly 24 hours of daylight and all the huts are open. Snow patches linger, but they're manageable. Rivers are crossable and the views are insane. August is my personal favorite. Slightly fewer people, slightly cheaper huts, and the start of those golden moody skies that make Iceland feel cinematic. It's cooler, yes, but the trade-off is atmosphere. Those low clouds, soft light, and the feeling that you're hiking through a nature documentary narrated by yourself. By early September, the weather turns unpredictably fast. Shorter days, colder nights, and the first snowfall hitting the highlands. It's still possible to hike, but only if huts are open and conditions are clear. Think fewer crowds, more solitude, and a decent chance that you'll see the northern lights from your sleeping bag, right before freezing your face off. Anything outside that window, you're looking at closed huts, impassable snowfields, and rescue teams that would really prefer not to come get you. Winter in the highlands is beautiful, but unless you're an Arctic expedition guide, save it for another time. Even in summer, expect daytime temperatures between 5 and 15 degrees Celsius. It can rain any day, often sideways, and the wind has its own personality. So if you want the best shot at clear trails, open huts and views you can actually see through the fog, aim for mid-July to mid-August. You'll still get rain, you'll still get wind, but you'll also get Iceland at its absolute best. Wild, unpredictable and worth every shiver. You've got two main options, the mountain huts or camping. Both are unforgettable in very different ways. There are huts on every stage of the Laugavegur and Fimmvörðuháls trail, usually one per major stop, spaced about a day's walk apart. Think of them as rustic, alpine lodges without the luxury, simple, functional and life-saving when the weather goes full Viking mode. Inside the huts you'll get shared bunk rooms, normally between 20 and 40 people, foam mattresses, but you have to bring your own sleeping bag, a common kitchen with gas stoves, pots, pans and occasionally a French press. Yeah, they were quite kitted out for coffee in these huts. No electricity in most huts, so bring a power bank. Running water, usually cold. Some huts have showers for 5 to 7 euros for 5 minutes. They're warm, they're dry and filled with that international hiker energy. People swapping stories, drying socks over stoves and comparing whose freeze-dried meals look least depressing. Privacy, 0. Atmosphere, a solid 10 out of 10. All huts on the trail are managed by Icelandic Tourist Association. You'll need to book online, usually months in advance, especially for July and early August. Each hut will cost between 8 and 12,000 ISK per night, which is about 55 to 80 euros, depending on the location. And no, you can't just show up and see if there's space. You'll be disappointed. These huts fill up faster than Reykjavik Airbnbs during Eurovision. They've also released a new booking system where you have to add yourself to a waiting list and they will let you know which dates are available. So please check the website out on the best way to book. If you prefer fresh air and have a strong relationship with your tent poles, camping is available at every hut site. You don't need to book ahead, just show up and pay on arrival. Expect to pay between 2,500 and 3,000 ISK per person, about 20 euros per night. Facilities vary, but you'll usually have a flat camping area near the huts, access to hut toilets, sinks and sometimes showers, a cooking shelter or windscreens. Well, keywords on sometimes. Camping gives you the freedom, space and unbeatable morning views, but it's also colder, wetter and noisier when the wind decides to test your tent's engineering. If you go this route, make sure the tent is 4-season rated. Your sleeping bag is warm at least to -5 degrees Celsius and you know how to pitch in gale force winds. Because one bad stake placement out here and the tent's relocating to another postcode. Just note that huts only take pre-booked guests overnight. So if you're camping, you can't crash inside unless it's emergency. The trail is very well marked with yellow stakes, you don't need a guide. But still, download offline maps before you go. You can use AllTrails or Komoot for the digital version. You can also use physical maps for backup. Verduur.is is good for weather forecasts. And safetravel.is is good for condition updates. Self-service is spotty or non-existent. Treat your phone like a digital compass, not a lifeline. Alright, time for the big question. How much does it really cost to hike the Laugavegur and Fimmvörðuháls trail? Because yes, the views are free, but literally everything else isn't. The huts, the most popular option, they're normally about 8,000 to 12,000 ISK, around 55 to 80 euros per night. This includes mattresses, kitchen use, toilets and running water. Showers are extra, normally 5 to 7 euros for 5 minutes, and yes, the timer is brutal. Camping will be around 2,500 to 3,000 ISK, about 20 euros per night per person. For 5 to 6 nights, that'll be around 100 to 130 euros total. They'll give you access to the hut facilities, but prepare for rain and wind therapy. Transportation to get there and back. Highland bus is normally about 60 to 90 euros one way, that's from Reykjavik to Laugavegur and the other way around. So the total return trip should cost around 120 to 160 euros. Car transfer services will be more expensive, expect 200 to 300 euros for one way, quite pricey. Bring all your food from Reykjavik, that's your best option. Expect 8 to 12 euros per freeze-dried meal, about 1.5 to 3 euros for snacks and 6 to 10 euros for coffee or beer at huts. Yes, they sell both and they are worth it. Average total about 20 to 30 euros per day for food and drinks. Gear and equipment. Essential include a backpack, sleeping bag, hiking boots, rain gear and trekking poles. FYI, I've got a full video on my packing list if you want to see what I packed for my trip. So your total trip estimate will be, on a budget with camping, around 400 and 450 euros if you have your own gear, and if you're going in the huts with your own gear, about 700 to 850 euros. So yeah, not exactly a budget holiday, but when you realize you've just hiked across volcanoes, glaciers and waterfalls, you'll kind of forget the price tag. Besides, you can always tell yourself it's cheaper than therapy, and honestly, it's just as transformative. The key is to plan smart, bring your own food, book early and invest in good gear, because out here, staying warm and dry is worth more than anything money can buy. You don't need to be an ultramarathoner to hike the Laugavegur and the Fimmvörðuháls trail, but you need to be comfortable walking uphill, downhill, through some mud, across rivers and occasionally into horizontal rain, questioning your life choices. The honest truth, it's challenging, but not extreme. The Laugavegur trail isn't a technical hike, it's just a test of consistency. You'll be walking 12 to 25 kilometers per day, carrying a 10 to 15 kilograms backpack, often in wind or drizzle. No ropes, no climbing, just long days on uneven terrain. If you can comfortably do 4 to 6 hours of hiking with a loaded backpack, you're ready. The hardest parts are mental, staying positive when your socks are wet for the third time today. Start training at least a month before your trip. Earlier if you're new to long distance hiking. Here's a simple plan that actually works. The first 2 weeks, hike about 2 to 3 times per week, 8 to 12 kilometers. Focus on endurance, slow pace, but long duration. Add some stairs or incline treadmill if you live somewhere flat, like me, in the Netherlands. Weeks 3 to 4, you want to add a backpack with about 8 to 10 kilograms of weight. Practice walking on uneven terrain or trails with elevation. Do one long weekend hike, between 15 to 20 kilometers. For weeks 5 and 6, build up to back-to-back hiking days. Mix some cardio, running and cycling with some light strength work. Focus on recovery, stretching, mobility and nutrition. Basically, train for long days on your feet, not sprints. If you can walk a marathon distance over 2 days, you'll be fine. Honestly, the biggest muscle you use out here is your mindset. You'll get wet, you'll get tired, the wind will test your will to exist. But if you can laugh, keep moving and remember why you're out here, you're unstoppable. Every low moment out here is temporary. Every tough climb leads to a view that makes all worth it. The Laugavegur and Fimmvörðuháls trail are often called some of the most beautiful hikes in the world, and they are. But what no one tells you is that Iceland's version of beautiful comes with a bit of chaos. So let's talk about what it's really like out there, the good, the bad, and the occasionally ridiculous. You'll start the day in sunshine, eat lunch in a snowstorm, and finish in fog that makes you question reality. That's a normal Tuesday on the trail. Expect rain, wind, and temperature swings anywhere from 3 to 15 degrees Celsius. Sometimes all within 1 hour. The trek isn't predicting the weather, it's respecting it. Always hike with your rain gear ready to deploy, like a superhero cape. And when in doubt, layer up. You can always strip down later, preferably not in gale force winds. There are multiple glacier-fed rivers on the Laugavegur trail, and no, there are no bridges. You'll roll up your pants, swap into sandals and wade in, usually knee-deep, always freezing. The water's so cold it makes your bones rethink their life choices. But that shock, weirdly addictive. By day 3 you'll casually be saying things like, oh, good, another river crossing. Cross at the widest, calmer section. Undo your backpack waist strap, safety first. Always use trekking poles, and film it if you can. Future you will find it hilarious. And if you're like me, you typically cross these rivers 3 or 4 times to get a good shot. If the rain doesn't test your patience, the wind will. It's strong enough to steal hats, rearrange tents, and occasionally slap you in the face with your own hood. Pitch your tent low, double stake every corner, and never underestimate a breeze that doesn't seem that bad. Icelandic wind turns polite forecasts into personal vendettas. If you're staying in huts, forget about personal space. It's one big slumber party with 20 to 40 people, all snoring, rustling, and occasionally sleep talking in 5 different languages. Earplugs is vital, but honestly, it's part of the charm. By the second night, you'll be laughing about it, or too tired to care. You'll burn about 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day, and every meal starts tasting like victory. But after 6 days of rehydrated pasta, you'll fantasize about anything crunchy. Pack variety. Blisters are basically Iceland's initiation ritual. Even if your boots are broken in, the combination of wet socks, volcanic grit, and long days can get to you. Bring blister plasters, compete, tape, and patience. Okay, some final tips and advice. Everything I wish I knew before starting. Mornings are magic out here. You'll beat the crowds, catch that golden light, and usually avoid the afternoon weather tantrums. Plus, arriving early means first pick of the bunks, hot showers, and actual space in the kitchen, which, trust me, is worth its weight in gold. When you see 12 kilometers on the map, don't think city walking pace. This is Iceland. It's more like 12 kilometers up, down, wind, mud, snow, and scenery so distracting you'll stop every 50 meters for photos. Give yourself time, enjoy it, because the trail isn't a race, it's an experience. You can't be miserable with chocolate in your hand. Bring something you love, nuts, candy, jerky, whatever keeps your spirit and blood sugar up. Your feet are your best friends, treat them like royalty. Change socks midday if they're wet, tape hot spots early and dry everything at night. Nothing ruins Iceland faster than a blister the size of a lava rock. Everyone takes the same photo of the Rainbow Mountain. What makes your journey special are the little things, the laughter in the hut, the fog lifting after a storm, the strangers who become trail friends. Those are the shots you cherish later. When I look back on the trail, I don't remember the rain, the cold, or how tired I was. I remember the silence between the valleys, the sound of wind against my jacket, the way the mountain shifted color every hour, like Iceland was a painting in real time. Somewhere between Laugavegur and Skogafoss, the world just slowed down. No notifications, no deadlines, just steps, breath, and sky. And by the time I reached the waterfall, it wasn't about finishing a hike anymore. It was about realizing how much you experience when you let the world remember what matters. If you think about doing this trail, do it. You'll face challenges, yes. You'll get wet, tired, and occasionally question your sanity. But you'll also experience moments so beautiful that stay with you long after the boots dry. You'll meet strangers who feel like old friends, share food with people you can't even pronounce the names of, and realize that happiness doesn't need much, just movement, purpose, and open space. So go. Take that first step, book that flight, plan the hike. Iceland doesn't wait, it just is. And once you've walked through it, you'll never look at the world the same way again. Thanks for watching this full Iceland hiking guide. If this helped or inspired you, hit that like button, it really supports the channel. Subscribe if you want more cinematic trail guides like this one. I've got many more adventures coming. And if you've hiked Laugavegur yourself or plan to, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. Until next time, keep exploring.